If you're into the health optimization and longevity space, then you probably have heard about peptides. Now, today I want to talk about a peptide that is not that known, or most likely you haven't heard of it unless you're really deep in the biohacking and peptide science. Now, you probably heard about wegovy, mounjaro, Ozempic. They're all peptides that help with blood sugar and weight loss, and they're very powerful, right? A lot of people have wonderful benefits from them. But there are also other peptides, and they're just small chains of amino acids. They're the building blocks of protein. Normally when we eat protein, the body has to break it all down and then reassemble it. And if we inject them in the peptide form, they're already preformed and they can be a lot more powerful. Now, just a quick disclaimer, whatever I'm telling you today is educational only. Most peptides are not currently licensed for human use. They can be bought, but they're basically for research purposes, and you have to be really careful if you're experimenting with yourself that you're getting them from good sources, and you are aware of the fact that they aren't currently registered and allowed for human purpose. However, there is a peptide that I was fascinated by when I dug through the research, and it's got really good potential, and it's called Thymosin alpha 1. Now, why was I so excited about it is that it's actually shown to stimulate our immune system, to support and get rid of infections that are often really hard to deal with, including such things like viruses. Oftentimes people have viral infections and they just can't get rid of them, even though they try all these different things, including things like Epstein-Barr virus, cytomegalovirus. People often know Epstein-Barr virus from glandular fever, but then often also with long COVID, it's actually a reactivation of that dormant Epstein-Barr virus that people weren't even aware of they had, and it just keeps messing with the immune system. And that reactivation is actually has a lot of research to link it towards not so good health outcomes, such as cancers, really big one, bad one, but also multiple sclerosis and other issues. Now, it also helps with other immune related conditions, such as when we're having other infections like mold toxicity or Candida albicans, fungal infections, or if we're having certain bacterial infections that is just really hard to treat because the immune system has become weakened. It also has been shown to have really good potential with cancer conditions. So in particular, it has been shown to be helpful with melanoma and also other cancers. Just be aware that obviously all these things are for research purposes at the moment. However, there is a licensed form of Thymosin alpha 1 that has been used as a drug, as a adjunct, so in addition to cancer treatments, for example, or against hepatitis B and C, for example, as well, so viral conditions. Now, what it does though, and that is the really interesting part, is that you'd expect, okay, it helps support the immune system, so what if it overshoots? What if it makes the immune system too angry? And that actually is the case with a lot of substances out there. If you put a substance in the body that supports the immune system and makes it stronger, there's often a potential downside that it might overshoot and then contribute to inflammatory conditions or autoimmune conditions where the immune system is overreactive and constantly fighting something, including our own body as an autoimmune disease. Now, the fascinating part is that Thymosin alpha 1 seems to be doing something else. It seems to be modulating our immune system rather than just increasing it. So it seems to actually be down-regulating it when it's overreactive and improving it when it is needed, which is really powerful and beneficial, right? Now, for example, some of these overactive immune responses I was mentioning just before, such as autoimmune diseases, they can benefit from that. There's research that shows that multiple sclerosis, as an example, could be benefiting from that peptide. Also, potentially things like mast cell activation syndrome, histamine intolerance, excessive allergies, those are all overreactions of the immune system. And there isn't direct research yet, but they suggest that might potentially be also beneficial. So also something to be aware of, on just kind of keep an eye on that for that. I see this a lot in my clients. They will have chronic viral infections, mold toxicity, and then they develop all these different histamine-related issues. They develop allergies, food intolerances to healthy foods, and life can be pretty miserable on that. Their blood sugar drops from the histamine problems. Their blood pressure drops as well. They get headaches, they have insomnia, they have rashes. It's not pleasant to have mast cell activation syndrome or histamine intolerance issues. But I always work in a functional medicine way anyways. We look at what's causing it in the first place, rather than just going on a low histamine diet, which can sometimes be beneficial short term, but long term it's very restrictive. So you want to look at where is this coming from. Are there any chronic infections that I'm playing on these, on the mast cells, on the histamine breakdown genes? We can have genetic predispositions that predispose us towards that, but potentially these peptides might be a beneficial modulating factor. And that's the right word, is modulating. Thymosin alpha 1 has been shown to modulate the immune system, be pleiotropic they call it. So it helps to upregulate it when it's needed and downregulate when it's overreactive. Now another really wonderful thing is that it also helps with longevity. Now how is that? Research shows that we used to think that for each of these big ones that we're worried about and we're trying to prevent with longevity practices such as Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, strokes, heart attacks, high blood pressure, all of that people are generally worried about when they come to see me in my practice, those are the things they don't want to run into. And functional medicine looks at the root causes of them. Now, general medicine used to think that each one of these conditions was completely separate and they all had separate triggers. But then geroscience came, and over the last, actually it's been more than a decade now, it's research has really come along greatly in the last 20 years. They found something called the hallmarks of aging, and they realized that there are 12 underlying factors that all interconnect and then lead to all the bad health outcomes that we associate with bad age-related problems, such as cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, strokes, heart attacks, all of these things that we're trying to prevent. They realized that actually most of them have at their core 12 hallmarks that all interconnect, all work on each other, worsen each other. And if we just address those hallmarks, then the health outcome for all of these factors is much improved and extended. We're extending our lifespan, which is the whole idea behind longevity science and research, right? Is we're trying to stay healthy for as long as possible. Now, inflammation is one of them. And the other one that you might not have heard of is called senescence. Now, both of these can be modulated by thymosin alpha 1. And that's where how this peptide can potentially improve longevity and health span as well. Now, inflammation is one of these factors that people have heard about often. It contributes to all sorts of health decline, low-grade lingering inflammation. And there's usually a reason for that. There's usually some kind of chronic infection that is stimulating the immune system to produce inflammation to try and fight it off. Hidden food intolerances, chronic infections like viral infections, mold, candida, not the right bacteria in the gut, all these things make the immune system slightly more inflammatory and then contribute to that, what they're also called inflammaging, aging us from the inside out, basically, kind of like rusting. So that part can be helped, which is wonderful. And the other one is immunosenescence. Senescence is kind of like zombie cells. Some might have heard of that. It's when cells should have died, but they don't. They linger. They should have been killed off and then be replaced by fresh, new, healthy cells. And for whatever reason, they've decided to not do that. And then they just linger like zombie cells. They're kind of half dead, not alive, but also just sticking around. And they produce inflammatory cells. So it then worsens inflammation and worsens gunk inside the body, which contributes to decline. And as we get older, oftentimes our immune cells become like zombie cells and they're not as strong anymore and they just start producing the wrong things. And they should be cleared out, replaced, and they don't. That's called immunosenescence in a nutshell. And what they found is that thymosin alpha 1 can help with that as well. It helps to re-stimulate them, strengthen them, rejuvenate them so they can act better. So on those two levels, it really has a good potential for stimulating health span and contributing to that. There's some research that shows that it could potentially help with high blood pressure, with atherosclerosis, also neurogenesis and cognitive function. So all of these things are really promising, and in particular for people that have tried everything. They're trying to get rid of certain infections and they're sleeping. So sleep is a really important anti-inflammatory tool. Movement, exercising, eating the right things, having a really healthy, balanced diet, not eating junk food, not synthetic food. All of these things generally help with lowering inflammatory load and improving our immune system. But in some people, that is just not enough. So this thymosin alpha 1 could potentially be a really good support to boost that. Now, if you're interested in experimenting with peptides, like I said in the beginning, just make sure that you source them from reputable sources where they are third-party tested for purity. A lot of them come from China, and you're injecting them in yourself. So you don't want to inject something that might have pollutants in them, some heavy metals or some bacteria or other pollutants, impurities that could potentially go right into your body and cause really bad side effects. Also, always make sure you work with someone that knows how to dose them. But in the end of the day, they are all just research peptides right now. They're not really licensed for use in humans. I hope you found this helpful. I would love to hear from you. Have you experimented with any peptides? Have you experimented with thymosin alpha 1? What's your experience? And I would love to hear from you.